Proper Akida, Quran and Sunnah, Quran and Sunnah, Minhaj and Akida, actions speak louder than words,
Sunnah following kids, come with me.
Gotta work hard to get to heaven. Treat the people good like the prophet would. Proper Akida, Quran and Sunnah, Quran and Sunnah, Minhaj and Akida, actions speak louder than words,
Wassalamu ala wa Rasulullah. I'd like to welcome everybody to our class for the Sunnah Follower Kids and New Shahadah'S. This is our Sunday class that we hold every week at this time. And we are addressing issues that relate from the book entitled Juz Amma. Juz Amma. And this is a book written by Dr. Karim AbuZaid. And it's a book that helps to explain the last 37 chapters of the Quran. And in hopes you guys participating in this class, you will get a better understanding of the speech of Allah, which is the Quran, and then how to implement it in your life. And we also end this class with a weekly hadith from the book entitled He Was by Shaykh Muhammad Sayyid Adly. Shaykh Muhammad Sayyid Adly. So please make sure that you purchase both of those books on Amazon. And I'm going to get right into it for today, because I know for a lot of us, it's a beautiful day in different parts of America. And I know the kids want to get outside and enjoy the weather. So we're going to get right into it. And I'm going to put the PowerPoint up for today's discussion. And inshallah, everybody can see my, there you go. Yeah, there you go. You guys can see it. And today what we're going to do is discuss one of the, we're going to summarize the meaning of one of the surahs of Juz Amma, which is the last 37 chapters of the Quran. But just before I get into that, let me remind everyone that Juz Amma, these are verses and chapters of the Quran that expose certain things. And in today's lecture, we're going to go over Surat An Naba, Surat An Naba, Surat An Naba. And then next week, we're going to do An Nazia. And then the next week we'll do Abasa. Now these three surahs help us to understand what to do if we are having doubts about our religion. Everybody wants to know what happens when we die. Where do we go? What happens to us in the grave? Well, these three chapters of the Quran answer those questions for us. And also, we're going to learn over the next 3 weeks about 3 different kinds of people. There are some people who do not believe in Allah. They do not believe in judgment. They don't believe in the angels or any of that. And not only do those people exist, but there are people who follow them in their beliefs. And then the third kind of people are the people of Dawah. We call them the Dawah champions. Who are the Dawah champions? These are those who do believe in Allah. And it's our job to help the others stay strong in our faith. That's why we talk about how important it is for us to make sure that we form friendships and allegiances with strong practicing Muslims. So these 3 chapters of the Quran teach us to keep our faith and belief in Allah strong, and in turn have allegiance with each other and keep each other strong in faith too. And today we're going to go over Surat An Naba. An Naba. Okay? Believe it or not, guys, this surah, Allah sent down these words for people who are confused and don't believe in the day of judgment. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us in an authentic hadith that the hardest thing for him to convince the Quraysh of is the fact that when we die, we will be brought back together and we stand before Allah. A lot of people don't believe that that's possible. And that's why the Prophet spent most of his time when he was calling to Islam, the hardest thing to convince the people of was that they believed that Allah could be the creator, but they couldn't accept the fact that they would be brought back together and stand before Allah and be judged. So these people, when you talk about it, they say, how is that possible? Okay. And so, alhamdulillah, this chapter, An Naba, it addresses many of the issues that the confused people who don't believe in the day of judgment come up with. Those people that say, what are you talking about? And this surah reminds us that Allah's justice is real, even though we can't see something, even though we can't touch something, even though we can't feel something, doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. How many of us get our feelings hurt? Maybe you said something that another Muslim didn't like, and you didn't mean to hurt their feelings. You can't tell if their feelings were hurt, but just because you don't see it, you couldn't feel it, doesn't mean that their feelings are not hurt. Well, this surah reminds us that Allah's justice is real and that we should always believe in everything that he tells us, even if other people don't. Okay? So, how did this chapter of the Quran come about? Well, once upon a time, Allah sent down some special words through the angel Jibril alayhi salam. And he told the angel Jibril to convey these words and this message to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He said, I want you to take these words of mine and convey the great news to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And this chapter asks the question, what are they asking each other about? What are the people talking about? The people were wondering and talking about the great news. What is that news? The day of judgment. And some people were confused when they received this news. Some people were unsure if what they were hearing were true. And some people just didn't want to believe the news at all. So thus we had 3 groups of people. The status quo brokers. And who are they? These are people who are unsure and don't want to believe that a day will come when we will have to stand before Allah and be judged about the choices and decisions that we made in this world. And then the other group of people were people who were followers. You know what a follower is. These are people who are confused about things, so they follow what other people say. They go with the majority of what people say. Even though they can't prove what they're hearing to be true or not, they'll just follow them because everybody else is following them. Just like social media. A lot of the speakers here about Islam, you look on YouTube, Just because they have 1 million followers doesn't mean that that person knows the religion. But unfortunately, most people follow that person because it's all about follow the leader. And then you have the third group, the Dawah champions. These are the heroes amongst the people. These are the people that stayed strong and they believed everything that Allah sent down. They believed everything that Allah said, even the things that they couldn't see or they couldn't feel or they couldn't taste. So they believe in the day of judgment, and they refuse to allow the status quo people or the follow the leader people, to take them away from that belief. And when you read this surah or this chapter of the Quran, chapter An Naba, it tells us that Allah made everything around us. He's the creator of everything. And he created the earth to be a place that we rest in. What does that mean? Not only do we come from the earth, but we will die and be put back in it. And also Allah tells us in this chapter of the Quran that the mountains, he created the mountains too. And everything that Allah created serves a purpose, even if we don't know what that purpose is. And Allah tells us without the mountains, the earth would not be firm. The earth rotates in space. The mountains is what keeps us from feeling the earth rotate. And also Allah tells us in this chapter that he's the one that created the night and the day. The night lets us know when to sleep. The day lets us know when to get up and go make our living and go to school. And Allah lets us know that it doesn't even rain unless he says rain. And the rain serves the purpose too of making the plants grow so we can have food and shelter. So all these wonderful things show us how powerful Allah is. And all these things remind us that Allah does exist. He's real. He sees everything, even though we can't see him. We can't touch him. We can't taste him. These things didn't happen on their own. The earth didn't just appear. The mountains didn't just appear. The plants don't grow unless he allows it. It doesn't just rain when you want it to rain. It rains only when Allah commands it. So those are the proofs that Allah gives us in Surat An Naba. Surat An Naba. Surat An Naba. That surah, Allah lets us know that. And then after Allah reminds us of those things, then he goes into detail about the day of judgment. In this chapter of the Quran, we learn that the day of judgment is huge. It's important. On that day, everything will change. The mountains that we see will be destroyed. The sky that we look up and see will open up. And all of us will then be standing there before Allah. And on that day, it's too late to believe in Allah. Because when the people wake up on that day and see the mountains crumble, they see the sky open, and they see the angels descending from the skies, it's going to scare the people. They're going to say, oh, we believe now, but it's going to be too late. Okay? But for those of us who remain strong in this world, who already believed in these things, we will be rewarded that day. We will be rewarded with beautiful gardens, and that we will live in peace and happiness. So this one chapter, Surat An Naba, okay, it teaches us to be strong in our faith, because we're living in a world where most people have questions about Allah. Most people have doubts about whether or not they're going to be punished for the choices they make. Well, this surah teaches those of us who don't have doubts to stay strong, even though everybody else around us are not. It also teaches us to ponder Allah's creation. Whenever we do find ourselves questioning or doubting Allah's words, this surah teaches us to look around, look at the sky, look at the mountains, look at the flowers, look at the birds, look at the bees, look at yourself. These are all reminders that Allah does indeed exist, and He's the most powerful. And also, this chapter of the Quran teaches us to be ready, because we never know when death will come. We never know when we can fall, hit our head, and die. So be ready for that. And the way that we be ready for that is by making good choices, making sure that the choices we make in this world are in sync with Allah's laws. And also, the big message of this chapter of the Quran is that nothing in this world will last forever. The real life is the hereafter, and we have to be ready for it. And the way to ready ourselves is by holding firm to our belief in Allah, doing the good things He commands us to do, and by staying away from the things that Allah commanded us to stay away from. So stay strong. I'm always telling you guys, you hear me telling your mothers and your fathers in my lectures, only the strong survive. The strong believer is more loved by Allah than the weak one. So stay strong. And when you find yourself weakening or questioning yourself, questioning Allah, then look at the signs He's given us. That'll snap us back to attention. And always be kind. Be good to other people. Don't go around hurting other people. Don't go around transgressing the limits of Allah. So that way, when the day of judgment comes, we're ready. So now I'm going to give you a quiz. Let's see how well you guys understood this short summary of Surat An Naba. Okay? First question, Surat An Naba is also known as the great news. Is that statement true or false? Go ahead, Corday. Is that true or false?
It's true.
Does everybody agree with Corday?
Yes.
MashaAllah.
Yes.
Exactly. Remember, An Naba is the great news. And what is that great news about, dear Mani? Dear Mani, what is the great news about?
Islam.
What about Islam? What part of Islam? Allah sent the great news of what? Anyone else?
To the companion.
Yeah, but what is it? What's the news about? Anyone else besides Corday?
I mean, well, I really raised my hand up for the next question.
Okay. Sister Asma and Najma, the great news of what?
The day of judgment.
Yes, indeed. The day of judgment. Allah sent this great news of the day of judgment. And also, we talked about the Dawah champions. What about this? The Dawah champions, they are people who hold strong belief in Allah. And they work to help others to stay strong too. Is that statement true or false? Go ahead, Sabrina.
True.
Do you guys agree?
Yes.
Yes, good job. The Dawah champions. That's what we're all supposed to strive to be. Are you a Dawah champion? Do you believe in Allah, everything that He says, and you work to help others stay strong in that belief too? Are you a Dawah champion? What? What do y'all think? Are we all Dawah champions here? We should be. We should be. What about this? This chapter of the Quran shows us that Allah's power just by looking at the signs in His creation. Is this statement true or false? Go ahead, Shuaib.
True.
You guys agree? Is it true?
Yes.
Good
Yes.
job. Good job. Exactly. So Sister Tahira, what is a sign of Allah's power that you can look out the window and see? What do you see out the window that's a sign of Allah's power, Sister Tahira?
The day and the night.
MashaAllah, good job. The night and the day. That's a sign of the power of Allah. Dear Mani, what's another sign that you can see with your own eyes that shows the power of Allah? Dear Mani, go ahead. Dear Mani? Okay, anybody else? Qasim. What'd you say, dear Mani? Qasim, go ahead, Qasim.
Rain.
MashaAllah, when it rains, when it snows, that's a sign of Allah's power. Sister Amalia, what signs can you see of Allah's power? MashaAllah, when you see the trees, the animals, the plants, those are signs of Allah's power. Go ahead, Sabrina, what are some more?
Everything that you see.
Everything, MashaAllah, everything. The fact that you have eyes to even see through, that's a sign of Allah's power. The fact that you got these two things that you can see through, that's a sign too, MashaAllah. So Allah left His signs. He has His signs all around us that He really does exist and that He is powerful, more powerful than anything that we know of or can think of. And now that brings us to this week's Hadith. And this is taken from the book of Shaykh Muhammad Sayyid Adly. The book entitled He Was, and this is how the book looks. You can purchase this book on Amazon. Please go to Amazon and get it. These are hadiths that explain the character and behavior of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So today we're going to look at a hadith that teaches us that our Prophet Muhammad was a very intelligent, thoughtful person. He used to think. A lot of us do things without thinking. Sometimes we say things with our tongue without thinking. I do that a lot. I'm a woman. We women, for those of us who are female, we really do that a lot. We speak without thinking sometimes. And some people do things without thinking. A lot of men do that. Men may, for example, you have to be careful. If you heard my lecture yesterday, be careful with social media. A lot of times these brothers will go to somebody's Facebook page and put a check mark or acknowledge the woman without thinking of the repercussions. You are a brother who's famous. You are a brother of a certain stature. And now you will be looked upon as flirting with a woman. You know, we got to be careful. And I want you kids to remember that too. Be careful of social media. You'll go and try to play a game and you don't think first. You sit there and play a game with non-Muslims, and the non-Muslims are cursing. The non-Muslims are talking filthy. And next thing you know, you're picking up their language. You're picking up their habits. We have to be more thoughtful. We have to think things out. Our Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he always held himself accountable. He thought about what he would say before he said it. And then he think about what he said afterwards too, so he could make corrections. He thought about what he would do before he did it. And then after doing it, he'd still think about how he did it so he could again make corrections. Well, let's look at some more examples of how thoughtful the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was. And this first hadith speaks about how thoughtful and understanding he was. And this is important, of other people's feelings. Remember, we talked about that hadith last week, where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam led the companions in the Fajr prayer. And then after the Fajr prayer, he went outside and he said, "How many people have you killed today? How many people have you killed?" And the companions ran and they were like, "What is he talking about? What did somebody do?" And that's when he said, whenever you attack the honor and reputation of another Muslim, it's the same as if you've taken a sword and stabbed or cut off his head. Subhanallah. So be careful. He said, be careful, be mindful, be thoughtful of what you say about each other, because you may say something that can destroy a person, and then you will feel bad about it. That hadith is authentic. It's Sahih Muslim. It's also a verse in the Quran too, from Surat Hujurat, where Allah tells us you may say something that you didn't mean to hurt a person, but end up destroying them. That happens a lot. It's happened to me a lot. Hello. All right. So our Prophet sallallahu was very mindful and thoughtful of other people's feelings. You kids have parents. Sometimes your mother may tell you to take out the garbage. Or maybe your father will tell you to babysit your younger brother or your younger sister. You don't want to do it, so you say something without thinking. You disrespect your parents. And then you see how hurt your parents are. Maybe your father goes to work that night and he gets in a car accident. And you're left feeling like, oh my God, the last thing I did was talk back to my father. Or maybe your mother is taking the laundry downstairs and she slips and falls and hits her head and now she's in a coma. You would think about, wow, my last words to her were of disrespect. We have to be careful of other people's feelings. Then you have to live with that. Oh, the last thing I said to my father was something disrespectful. My father didn't know that I really loved him, or my mother didn't know that I love her. We have to think about our brothers and sisters in faith. This is part of al-wala wal-bara. Remember, as Muslims, our allegiance is supposed to be to Allah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the religion, and each other. As I spoke about in my lecture yesterday, we have to be kind to each other. We have to treat others the way we want to be treated. Would you want somebody hurting your feelings? No. So why are you hurting theirs? Okay, would you want someone disrespecting your mother? Why are you disrespecting theirs? So let's look at this hadith here. And this hadith is narrated by Malik ibn Huwairat. He said, one day I came to the Prophet to visit, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with a group of men from my tribe. They came to learn. They came to learn about Islam. He said, and we stayed with him for 20 nights. And the Prophet was so kind and so merciful to us. And when he realized that we were missing our families, he said, go back home and spend some time with your families now and teach what you've learned from me to them and pray with them. And if any of you calls the adhan for the prayer when it's time, let it be the oldest one amongst you and let him lead the prayer. That was because all of these men, they all converted to the religion at the same time, and they were all together for those 20 nights learning the same thing. So whenever we all have the same amount of knowledge, we all know the Fatiha, we all know how to perform the prayer, we've all been Muslim the same amount of time. So who should lead the prayer? The oldest. So we learned that from the Hadith. But the main point here too was the Prophet was so thoughtful, so considerate, that he could tell that these men were missing their families. 20 days is a long time to be away from your wives. They didn't have telephones. They couldn't text message. They didn't have social media back in those days. So they didn't know what was going on. And the Arabs were a very warrior race of people. There were always tribal fights and raids. So the Prophet was so thoughtful, he could see that these men who came seeking knowledge, and they were the best men amongst this tribe, that they were worried about their children and wives. So he told them, go home. You have learned enough. You've learned how to pray. Okay? You know what it means to believe in Allah. That's all you need right now. Go home to your families and check on them, and let the oldest one amongst you lead the prayer. So this is a beautiful hadith because it shows how thoughtful the Prophet Muhammad was, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and how considerate he was of other people and their situations. How many of us are that way? Even myself. A lot of people listen to my classes. You guys hear it every day. And they're like, wow. Okay, I try to design my lectures and try to make them relate to what you are experiencing in your life. The problems that you guys bring to me, I use my lectures as a means of giving you the solution as to how to handle them. Okay? I learned that from the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from his Sunnah. So the Prophet showed mercy, okay, to the people. He tried to put himself, that's called empathy. He put himself in the shoes of others, not sympathy, empathy. Empathy is when you put yourself in the shoes of another person and imagine how you would feel if you were experiencing what that person experienced. Well, the Prophet could imagine what these men were worried about. They were worried about their families because they left their women and children alone for 20 days. Maybe some other tribe is trying to attack. So this is something that we need to work on, being more considerate, more thoughtful, and more mindful of others. And again, we learn from this hadith that when all of us have the same amount of knowledge, all of us are on the same level, who should lead the prayer? The oldest. Okay? The oldest, if we've all been Muslim for the same amount of time. And also we learn that in that case, the oldest would be the one that we turn to and appoint as leader for most of our affairs. So mashallah, this was a wonderful hadith that I want all of us to work on this week, myself included, being more mindful, more considerate, and more thoughtful of others. Before we speak, Good advice for me too. Before I speak, I'm going to think a little more. Okay? Think about the person, how that person's reaction may be. Okay? And then after I speak, I'm going to reevaluate to make sure that maybe I did something wrong, and so I can make it right. And when I make a decision to act on something, the same thing, I'm going to think it out first and then do it. And then after I do it, I'm going to think again to see maybe I didn't do it correctly. So, mashallah, this is our class for this week. Okay, are there any questions or comments about any of the hadiths or the Surat An Naba? Surat An Naba. Any questions or comments? Okay, next week, inshallah, we're going to talk about Surat An Nazi'at. Surat An Nazi'at, okay? And we'll go over the next hadith in that book written by Shaykh Muhammad Saeed Adly. And also, I want to remind everyone listening that the next class is my class, the Diluting El Wala Wal Bara. Make sure you guys are here for that at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. And then we have Dr. Ibrahim Duramali. He'll be at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, doing the understanding and implementation of Surat Baqarah. He will start with verses 78. All right. So I'm going to log out for it right now. I'll see you guys back here at 6:30. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Waalaikumsalam.